Come to order. It is Monday morning, February 14, 2022, 9 a.m. And the Kerr County Court is now in session. If you would, please rise for the prayer and pledge. Led by Commissioner Harris.
Lord, thank you for the beautiful day you blessed us with. Please give us some rain when you see fit. Please guide us today and make decisions that we best in your eyes. Also, help us first stand with our first responders around the world as the world is in unrest right now. And guide us as you see fit. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. I want to remind everybody to please turn your cell phones off or to vibrate so we don't interrupt the proceedings. The first item on our agenda, every Commissioner's Court, regular Commissioner's Court meeting, is for public input. And this is an opportunity for the public to address the court. The court is not allowed to respond, but we are allowed to listen. And that's what our duty is on this part. If there's somebody from the public that wants to address the court, it needs to be on an item that is not on the agenda. If it's on the agenda, we ask that you wait until that agenda item is called. And we ask that you limit your remarks to 3 minutes. You speak from the podium, identify yourself by name and address. So with that, is there anyone from the public that would like to address the court? Commissioner.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity for a brief public comment.
Name and address.
Excuse me. My name is Tim Summerlin. I live at 105 Turnberry Circle here since 1999. Thank you for this opportunity for a brief public comment. Like many in the community, I've followed the court's addressing of the reception and use of ARPA funds allocated in the fall, with the remainder to be remitted this spring. I winced to acknowledge myself among the silent majority referenced in one comment on this matter. A persistent group has not been silent, and you have heard much from them. Although I respect their commitment to their convictions, I cannot follow their reasoning or conclusions. Mostly, I regret the tendency to play out locally the harsh division that exists today in national politics, because it's neither necessary nor helpful. I want to thank the Commissioner's Court for its good sense and good judgment in accepting the portion of ARPA funds allocated to us. There are many ways that it could be used to address the impact of the pandemic. The fact that others elsewhere battle and even demonize one another does not mean that we must do so. We're a strong community, and when we act with the whole of our community in mind, we show others that there is an option to strife and rancor. A very good book says, a little leaven leavens the whole lump. Again, thank you. Continue the good work.
Thank you, Dr. Sherman. Next on our agenda, we customarily have comments from commissioners. So we usually start with Precinct 1. Commissioner Blue, anything to report?
Not really.
No particular issue.
4?
Well, y'all should. I hope, this is Valentine's Day, I hope y'all covered your bases here and everybody out there. So another thing I would remind everybody, early voting started today. And so there's a lot of good candidates. Choose wisely, do your homework, and pick some good ones. And be careful if you try to burn. Make sure the conditions are right, and don't put your neighbors or our VFDs at risk.
I guess the only thing I would add is had a couple of comments already today that I'm not wearing my glasses. I had eye surgery last week, very successful. I'm back to 20/20 in one and 20/30 in the other. I do have cheaters, so if my look is different, hopefully you tell me I look 5 years younger. With that, we're ready. Why not?
Let's get that out of the way. You look younger, Judge.
If it makes you feel better.
I don't know if 5 years is where I'd go, but you look younger.
Let's go to the consideration agenda, item 1.1. Consider, discuss, take appropriate action to accept the donation of a set of spike strips from the U.S. Deputy Sheriff's Association. Constable Ryder.
Thank you. That's pretty much it. I received some spike strips from the U.S. Deputy Sheriff's Association as a donation. They asked them for whatever they had available, and that's pretty much what I needed or I think I need from what they had in their lineup. So I can put number 2 on there too, Judge, if you just want to do it.
We've got to take them one at a time.
Okay.
Well, I move for approval.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second to approve accepting the spike strips from the U.S. Deputy Sheriff's Association. Any discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 4-0. Item 1.2, consider, discuss, and take appropriate action to accept the donation for a stalker radar system from the City of England Police Department. Constable Ryder.
Yes, you know, as you well know, getting another vehicle and the radar system I currently have has not been certified since 1999. If it has, I have no documentation on it. So, in talking about trying to get a certification, the City of England Police Chief Carol Twist says we have one. If you want it, you know, we gladly donate it. So that's where we're at with that. And it's in it's in working order. It's newer, it's better, it's ready to go. And it just got certified, by the way. So.
Okay.
Oh, excellent. So you tell somebody they're doing 45 and a 35, it has a little more teeth to it.
Yes, sir.
So now my question is, does Ingram still have I'm asking for a friend, do they still have radar in Ingram?
Yes, sir, they did.
Okay,
Several of them.
clear that up.
Yeah, they pulled me over a while back. I move for approval.
Second. We've got a motion and a second to approve the acceptance of the gift of the stalker radar system from the City of England. Any discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 4-0. Thank you, Constable.
Just to take up.
Item 1.3, consider, discuss, and take appropriate action to accept, we've got one more. Racial profiling report from Constable Precinct 4.
Well, I think you all have a copy of it. I filed the exemption because of not having an accurate radar or anything. I don't work any traffic, and I'm trying to get where I can do that. So there's no traffic stops to report for racial profiling.
I move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the racial profiling report from Constable Precinct 4. Any discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 4-0. I can't believe we've got a 9:15 item and we're ahead of schedule. So let's just skip down to item 1.6. Consider, discuss, and take appropriate action on a requested salary and step and grade for a new hire full-time investigator for the 216th District Attorney's Office. Ms. Wilson.
Yes, good morning. I am seeking approval for the salary of my incoming full-time investigator. I sent all the commissioners a copy of his resume and application. He is currently a lieutenant with the Houston Police Department. He has 21 years of law enforcement experience. 11 of that has been in a supervisory position, either as a sergeant or a lieutenant. Well, I've already sent you his resume. It's really important that the DA investigator, in my opinion, have some supervisory experience because the investigator deals with law enforcement agencies, and he has to really have tact and the ability to handle that and tell some of those agencies, you know, what you submitted, you need this, or you need to do some additional investigation. But anyway, he's not acting in a supervisory capacity in that regard, but that experience is extremely helpful. I am requesting, this won't change my budget, it's the same amount that's already in my budget. And right now, and the amount is, does the court need to know the amount?
It'd be nice.
Okay, Currently, it's budgeted as a grade 22.5 and a step 8, and that's a $60,611 yearly salary.
Can you just repeat it now?
$60,611.
I'm sorry, I missed it.
$60,611. That's what's currently budgeted, and it's a grade 22.5 and a step 8. What I am requesting is the same salary, so there won't be any change to my budget. The same salary, which is $60.611. I would like to change that to a grade 25.5 and a step 2, because the duties, I had redone some of the duties with my previous investigator and had spread them to other employees and kind of taken some of the duties, quite a few duties off of his plate. And those are going to be put back on this investigator's plate, and he's going to be working more closely with prosecutors in case prep, not just for grand jury, but for trials, especially trials. Just to let you know, right now we have a total of 1,906 cases pending. That includes both counties, with 3 prosecutors, which means if those cases are spread out evenly, that would be 635 cases per prosecutor. However, I don't carry a full caseload, so I carry about half of a caseload, and that means each prosecutor, each of my assistant DAs has 952 cases. And of course, as the state, we carry the burden of proof. We have to help officers who call us in, sometimes after hours, assistance with just some advice on what to do with the case, but also sometimes for help with either arrest warrants or search warrants, and that's where somebody with this kind of experience is also very helpful, because if a prosecutor is not available, then the investigator can help those officers with those arrest warrants and search warrants. And as his resume indicates, he is very familiar and knowledgeable in not only writing search warrants, but assisting his subordinates with writing search warrants. So that's my request. I'm seeking approval for the salary to remain the same as it was for my previous investigator, $60,611. And but the grade and step to change to what the current step and grade is for the 198 DA investigator, because the DA's investigator's duties in the 216 are going to be more similar to what the 198 investigator's duties are. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Well, it's my understanding that the sheriff's department investigators start out at 25 with a step of 5. And I'd like to see them all start out the same myself. Does that sound reasonable?
Mr. Okay, I'm trying to understand, what's the reason to change the grade if the salary's gonna be the same?
Yeah.
I'm sorry? Oh,
I'm trying to
just
figure
for
out-
the future, because basically the grade is based on duties, and the duties will be more similar to that of the 198 DA's investigator, which is a 25.5.
So this will change your next year's budget? Is what you're
No, it
saying?
won't. No, it won't.
How will it not change your next year's budget?
Well, because my investigator will stay in the same step and grade, the 25.5 and the 2, so it should not change the budget. I guess I'm not clear.
So
Maybe-
why are you asking us to do this?
I'm sorry?
If it doesn't change your budget, it doesn't affect us, it's in your budget, you can do what you want.
Well, I was told that I had to come to Commissioner's Court.
To change to, yes, I've been waiting for you to say
Okay,
something.
if the position differs from the position schedule that was approved in the previous budget, it has to be taken to court for a change. And this position was approved as a 22.5, step 8. So she's just asking for an increase in grade, and that has to be approved by the court.
And so is the job description changing?
It is.
Yeah.
Okay.
It is. It's going back to what it was originally. Yes, because as I mentioned earlier, there had been some things shifted off of the investigator's plate onto others. And that's some of it's gonna go back, and then our investigator will work more closely with the prosecutors in getting cases ready for trial and working with us during the trials. But I was also told that any time that somebody came in, if they were gonna be paid more than a step one, that I had to have Commissioner's Court approval. Even though it's already in my budget.
And that's true.
So the reason I'm asking that he not come in at a step one is because of his extensive experience. He's got 20 years experience. If he'd been with Kerr County the whole time, he'd be at a step 8.
Well, I like Commissioner Harris's idea that we keep everybody on the same page, basically. I don't know what HR would say to that, is that might make matters a little easier to keep track of.
Well, I know when the original salary study was done, you know, the employees completed the questionnaires, and the previous investigator position, they aligned it with a 22.5. Based on the answers to the questions about the duties. So if she's saying that the duties have increased,
Yeah.
more like the other DA,
Well,
which is a 25.5.
if we start adding and taking away from responsibilities and shifting around all these grades based on that, we're gonna have this crazy quilt thing like we just got through.
Exactly.
We just finally put this to rest, Lucy, so we're trying to get where everybody understands, HR department on down to us. And I'll admit that I probably understand it less than anybody up here.
No.
Because my background has nothing to do with government step and grade and all that sort of stuff.
Well, maybe Heather can answer this.
But I wasn't finished. So the point is that we went through all this trouble and hired a company to help us get through this and figure it out. And now we don't want to start changing it up.
Correct.
Based on what you're gonna give them. What comes across his desk doesn't matter, or her, it doesn't matter to me. What their responsibilities are don't matter to me. How you hire them in and put them in here and how we pay them through the county matters to me. And whether or not it changes our budget or if your budget stays the same for this year and changes next year, we need to stop that.
And if he was gonna make the same anyway, what's the difference?
Yeah, what's the difference?
Okay, here's the difference. So when that budget study was done, it was based on that current investigator's duties. It wasn't what should be.
It was actually based on everything in the county. I
Correct.
understand that this particular
Each
job,
department.
I get what you're saying, I understand that.
Right.
But we're talking about the big picture here. We're not going granular on this, so what your issue is and how you run your office is up to you. You're an elected official, so.
Correct. But it's my understanding that to change the step-in grade, I have to come to Commissioner's Court. When that budget study was done, it was based on what is the current investigator doing, not what should the current investigator be doing.
Actually, no, it wasn't. It was based upon all the employees, all the investigators. And before we start doing these piecemeal changes, I would like to go back and revisit and make sure that we have something that's uniform. It's fair to everybody.
Yeah.
I don't know, why do we need to change the step and grade in the middle of this fiscal year when we can deal with it in budget?
Well,
in
that's
just a
fine
few
with
months?
me. We can deal with it in budget, that's fine. I just didn't know if now was the time to do it or in
Well,
budget.
if he's making the same amount of money,
He would
then
be.
for the short term, I think he can be patient with us for us to do our little mini
Sure.
revisit of the salary study from last year.
Well, for new hires, if he were to come in at the same grade and step, at a 22.5, he would come in at a step 1, which is considerably less. Because all of our employees come in as a step 1 unless y'all
Yeah.
give special approval. And so the 22.5 step 1 salary is $51,001.60.
So you're saying an elected official can't hire him in at what she wants to?
I'm saying county policy states that all employees start at a step 1
So
unless.
I think what you're telling me is
Court.
that in order for him to make the same salary, which
Y'all-
is, that's what all of us are focused on, is he's gonna make the same amount of money.
He is.
Okay, then he has to come in at step 8.
Correct. And y'all would have to approve that.
Or what I think Lucy also said was, would it be the same amount of money if he came in at that different step and grade entirely, which would be more consistent with what the sheriff's department is at 25.5? Is that
Exactly,
right?
25.5 step 2.
No, we come in at 25, and then the grade is depending on what license they carry.
Yeah, okay.
What,
25. Like
Maybe
my
just mark
investigator is
that.
25.5, but they have a master's
Well,
certificate.
okay.
So does any of the licensing apply to this employee?
He will be, he is a master peace officer, which is, I think,
So
when
he
they
get
come in
0.5.
at a 5. And he will be a peace officer. The previous investigator was not, he was a civilian.
It is, so maybe I can clean up what I just messed up. The 25.5.2, is that the same as the 25.5.8 in salary?
Correct, yes it is, it's the exact
Okay.
same thing.
And so the .2 would be different from bringing it in at a .1, and so I think that's also part of the court's consideration.
We're concerned with the money.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I'm
And-
I'm concerned about the piecemeal changing of things.
Right.
That's what concerns me.
Well, I think when you hire somebody new, that will change things. He's got extensive experience, he's gonna be a peace officer, he's a master peace officer. My prior investigator was not a peace officer, he was a civilian. The duties will be different, they'll be more similar to what the 198th investigator is doing, which is, he's at a 25.5. But again, bottom line, we can leave him at what my previous investigator was, since he does have the same amount of law enforcement experience, or previous law enforcement experience, which is 21 years. Actually, my previous investigator would have had less. He would have had about 16 years law enforcement experience. And this new applicant has 21 years law enforcement experience, with 11 of it being in a supervisory position. So that's why I'm asking that he, regardless of what the grade and the step will be, that he, for the remainder of this budget year, be paid $60,611, just like my previous investigator was doing, being paid. And I'm not going to be asking for something different in next year's budget. I would like to see him put in the correct step and grade next budget.
Well, do we want to,
I thought we was at a point where we're gonna let it go, address it in the budget, but again, I agree with the judge.
Yeah.
We don't need to be piecemeal, and every time somebody wants to hire somebody new, I mean,
Well, let me just ask it this way. If he's gonna make the same amount of money, however y'all put him on the books, I'm not micromanaging that. He's gonna make the same amount of money, can we revisit this issue when we go through the budget and we're looking at it? We're trying to, we did this, for those of you that don't know, we did an extensive salary study last year and tried to make all the necessary adjustments. And I would kind of like to stay in step with that on an annual basis as we revisit these things. Is that something that we can do?
Yes, that's fine, but I think HR will need to know what grade and
Well,
step to put him in.
you've got to hire him,
The
and you've
county-
got to get on the payroll, and you have to hire him at a grade.
The county policy is that all new hires start at a step 1. So if we bring in a new hire, anything other than a step 1, y'all are gonna have to approve it.
okay.
If we bring him in at a 25.5, y'all are gonna have to approve that. At a step 2, y'all are gonna have to approve that. Because it's different than what was approved in the budget, which was a 22.5, step 8, but for the previous employee. But for a new hire to fill that position that was approved, it would have to be a 22.5, step 1.
I understand that.
Gotcha.
I understand that. But the question is, can we revisit this issue when we go through the budget this summer?
Then if we bring in the new hire, we're gonna start at the $51,001.60 a year, instead of the $61,000 that she would like. So if you want to bring him in at the same rate, y'all are gonna have to make a decision. Y'all are gonna have to vote on it. Because I would need a court order per county policy.
Well,
So we would
This
be
is-
responsible for starting the first little patch on the
Yeah.
quilt
yeah.
right now today.
Yeah.
After we got a quilt that was nicely made,
Exactly, and we paid for it.
and we paid well for it.
Yes.
It's parity upon the DAs, it sounds like though. If the 198 is already at the 25.5, then she's asking that it goes to the same. I don't know if the job descriptions are alike, that is what she stated. So you kind of got the precedent, I can't say the word. Precedent already established.
Yeah, I think that's a good point.
Okay, that's a good point. So it would, how closely does this mirror what the 198 does? This particular position?
Just based on me asking, what does the 198 DA's investigator do? Exact same.
Well, then that would kind of make sense.
But if she wants to start him at a step 2, you're gonna have to vote on that.
Right.
And a step 2 would be the same salary that's currently budgeted, and as I mentioned, I do not intend to ask you to increase it the next budget.
And I believe next year's salary would follow the same amount on whichever grade that the one is on. Next year's salary would not be affected.
Correct.
Like it will be the same increase based on our grade and step program.
Correct.
That would actually better comport with what we're talking about doing, in my mind, that you have both the DAs with the same position coming in at the same money.
You would think.
Paying them the same instead of going, well, why is this one different, 3 years out? So,
Yep.
well, I'll make the motion then, that we hire him at, what would be the grade?
25.5, step 2.
25.5, step 2.
And that'd be in line with the 198 and pretty much in line with the sheriff's department. Your department, Sheriff?
We're at 25. We're at 25, so
Well, we're still not there.
It's not really compatible.
And this is a new
retirement, but it gets us closer to what we were talking about that we want to do.
Yeah.
What do we want to achieve? Some kind of parity between the two roles.
The whole purpose behind the salary study and the effort that we made last year to adjust salaries, make sure that it's staying competitive in the marketplace, was to have more uniformity and to not have these customizations, these specialized, special offices and departments and positions. And so that's what I'm trying to get away from, is to make it more standard.
Agreed.
So that it's predictable.
You know, I told somebody earlier that my wife would like Cadillac, but we don't even pull in that car lot, we go to the next one.
I was just asking the sheriff what his supervisor made. He said he's at 28.
yeah, he's probably at 28. I have to look exactly, you know, Carl, she can look it up real quick. 28, is it
I don't
28?
know the name, I can tell you what it's.
Carter, don't know.
I don't have that.
Not supposed to do
I can
that.
tell you what
Captain, what's that?
I can tell you what grade 28,
Okay.
was 28 or 28.5, did you say?
No, she asked for, he's a captain, he'd be 28.
28, 28 step 1 is 66, 9, 13, 60.
And that's more of that's a supervisory position.
Well, I'm uncomfortable talking about these types of personnel issues publicly like this, and really wish this had been done discreetly, and not like this. But, there's a motion. Somebody want to second it? Fails for lack of a second. Let's revisit this thing. Let's get the discussion that we need to continue. Let's continue the problem. So we'll pass that item.
Okay, so we're going to come back to executive session, or I just
We'll come back on another agenda,
Okay, well,
another day.
I really need to hire an investigator. I've been without one, and so I really need to hire one. I don't
Well,
know.
I need you to sit down with Ms. Doss, and y'all come to us with a plan that is consistent, and we can look at it and make sure that we're doing the right thing here. That not this piecemeal thing.
Okay,
Piecemeal approach is not working.
I did sit down with both Ms. Doss and Ms. Stebbins, and I'm not sure why we're thinking it's piecemeal. I think this is the way the Commissioners Court actually set this up, was if you want something different on a new hire that's different from a step 1, you come to the Commissioners Court, and that's what I've done. But that's the way, is my understanding, the way the Commissioners set this up, and that's why I'm.
After what we went through last year with your office, okay, the plan was, you get the position statements, we'll find out where everybody is on it, and you can hire and fire, stay within your position statements all you want. But if you're gonna change that, you have to come to us.
Okay.
That was the plan. And so what we're trying to do is to work it so that it stays standard with everybody else.
Okay, so is it my understanding there then that if I want to pay him $60,611 since it's already been approved in my budget, that I can?
No, you have to follow the same county rules.
Okay,
You've got a position statement. Okay?
okay, all right. So,
Ms.
the
Whitney,
reason
I can't
I'm
solve your
cons-
problem right here today. I'm
and-
sorry.
And the
I can't.
and the reason I'm concerned is because other employees are having to cover some of those duties and they're racking up a lot of comp time. One of my employees who's been covering the intake has 105 hours for the last 2 weeks instead of 80. And that's in comp time since I don't have an overtime budget. And that will really cut into not having her in the office when she takes that comp time.
We're going to pass this item and go back to 1.5.
All right, thank you.
Oh, there's 1.4 going back to? The resolution? Okay. Yeah, I was trying to get back to the 9:15.
Sure.
Mr. Rowan? Yes. I apologize.
No, no, it's all good.
I'm going to call item 1.5. We need to do 1.4? We'll come back to 1.4.
Yeah.
1.5, consider discuss and take appropriate action to approve a proclamation declaring March 2022 as the American Red Cross Month. Glenn Rowan.
Commissioners Court, we really appreciate what y'all do. I'll be real quick. I come from the city of Houston. I was a police officer there for 26 years. And it's really kind of sad to see the type of salaries they make, but we appreciate what y'all do. Thank you so much. March is American Red Cross Month, a special time to recognize and thank volunteers, our everyday heroes, those who reach out to help their neighbors when they are in need. American Red Cross heroes are on the front lines every day, even during a pandemic. They volunteer their time, enhance skills, give blood, or provide financial donations to those in need. 90% of the American Red Cross workforce are volunteers. American Red Cross has been dedicated to serving people in need since our founder by Kerr over 140 years ago on May 21st, 1881. The Hill Country chapter was first chartered in December 1917 when World War I was nearing the end, November 1918. Around the world, across the country, here in the Hill Country, the American Red Cross responded to hurricanes, tornadoes, floods, wildfires, and home fires. When an injured service member ended up in the hospital far from home, the American Red Cross offered comfort. When a hospital patient needed blood, American Red Cross donors helped them. When a lifeguard jumped in to save a drowning child or someone stepped up to help a heart attack victim, the American Red Cross was there. During February 2021, Texas was hit with a devastating and deadly winter blast. With the Hill Country being hit the hardest last year, we had 90 days of winter warnings. The Texas electrical grid failed in most of the state. This failure placed most homes into the cold with no power, light, or heat or water. The storm induced a host of challenges in addition to the widespread electrical outages. Disaster responders were faced with impassable road systems, frozen water, and fuel shortages. Our responders were required to innovate. We supported a life-saving warming center set up by the government agencies and community partners with supplies and logistic assistance, such as 3,000 cots, 400 blankets, 300 comfort kits, 2,000 shelf-stable meals, 45 pallets of water, and 500 cleanup kits. In closing, we dedicate the month of March to all those who support the American Red Cross mission to prevent and alleviate human suffering in the face of emergencies. Our community depends on American Red Cross, which relies on donations of time, money, blood to fulfill its humanitarian mission. Now therefore, the Kerr County Commissioners Court has hereby proclaimed March 2022 as American Red Cross Month. I encourage all citizens to support this organization and its noble humanitarian mission.
I will move that we approve the resolution to make March of this year as the American Red Cross Month. And for those of you that don't know, the American Red Cross is one of the vital partners in our emergency management system here in the county. And we can always count on you, and we appreciate what you did.
Thank you.
So we've got a motion and a second to approve the resolution to make March 2022 as the American Red Cross Month. Any discussions? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Rowan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judge. Thank you, Commissioner.
I don't know if, is Tommy Rodriguez out there? You really don't
We
necessarily
don't
need
need
him,
him here.
but if he's here, I want to invite him in.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Let's go back and pick up item 1.4, which is to consider, discuss, and take appropriate action to accept the racial profiling report for Constable Precinct 1. And this is routine.
Yeah, I move for approval.
Second. A motion and a second to approve the racial profiling report for Constable Precinct 4, Precinct 1. Any discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 4-0. Item 1.7, consider, discuss, and take appropriate action to approve a $100 cash donation from a citizen to the Sheriff's Equipment Fund.
Yeah, good morning, Commissioner and Judge. Yeah, I'm looking for y'all's approval to accept $100 donation for our equipment fund.
I move for approval.
Second. Motion and a second to approve $100 donation to the Sheriff's Equipment Fund. Any discussion? In favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 4-0. 1.8, consider, discuss, and take appropriate action to accept Kerr County Sheriff's racial profiling, Tier 2 State of Texas mandatory form.
Yeah, pretty self-explanatory court. Obviously, the guys went to work 2,333 stops compared to like 780 the year before. But this report is complete, true, and accurate.
I move for approval.
Second. Motion and a second to approve the Kerr County Sheriff racial profiling report. Any discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 4-0. Item 1.9, consider, discuss, and take appropriate action to approve the mutual aid agreement for the cooperation of law enforcement efforts between the sheriff's offices of various Texas counties, and authorize me to sign so.
Okay, Court. What I'm looking for is the judge, to get the approval of the judge to sign this mutual aid agreement. I'll kind of explain it to you a little bit. They're doing this up in North Texas with 8 counties. This time we're wanting to do it with 3 counties, Kendall, Kerr, and Gillespie, hoping that Kimball will come on in time. What this is, the local government code gives us, the sheriff's office, an opportunity to work together if this is signed. So it's kind of like one big jurisdiction. What we're looking at is putting together a interdiction unit. I will be providing one person along with Kendall and Gillespie. And this is kind of what I call a full force multiplier. They'll be able to work together and work interdiction on the interstate. This is not no added cost to the Sheriff's Department at all. We just have to provide our own person. This person is 100% dedicated to it. I can tell you in North Texas, they've been very successful. We've been looking at this for 6 months. Looks like a really good opportunity for us. This will take no calls or our ability not to answer calls in the county. Like I said, these guys, we won't really have to back them up as a regular deputy because it's a 3-man unit and they'll normally be working together. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
You did this once before and it ended. I don't remember why.
Now, this is not a task force, okay? Like they used to have the judicial task force here, drug task force. This is an interdiction unit and made up of different counties, so it's a little bit different.
Well, and mutual aid is exactly what the volunteer fire departments here in Canada is.
Yeah, sure, but what I'm talking about is here in the county, the DA's office had.
216 task force, yes, sir.
Yeah, the 216 task force. Why was that ended?
DPS oversaw that and the funding was no longer there, so they had to disband. We used to work with them all the
I
time.
thought it paid for itself with what they confiscated.
Oh,
Cars, money, drugs.
Well, that was
That was the 198. Okay, so it paid for itself out of seizing cars, cash, all that sort of stuff.
that would be nice.
This comes out of the taxpayer's pocket.
Excuse me?
What you're talking about comes out of the taxpayer's pocket.
As far as what this?
Putting an officer out there.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, it does.
And that's one less officer in anywhere in the county except I-10.
Oh, not just I-10, 290, but anywhere in the 3 counties. Yes, sir. And this, it's been reviewed by the county attorney, and she didn't have any problems with it. I think it's a very good idea, especially with human trafficking. Now, this is not smuggling. This is not focused on that. We have another unit that does that on a daily basis. This is purely interdiction.
This basically gives you the permission to do that.
Yes, exactly. It's been approved in Kendall County. They're waiting on me here in Kerr, and then it goes to Gillespie next.
The sheriff and I met on some other things last week, and he got to explaining this to me and asking quite a few questions, and he convinced me. I like it. Sounds good.
I don't know how you cooperated with that, frankly. I second the motion.
Oh, I made one. That's okay. No,
Well, we got a motion to second. But in support of these mutual aid agreements, we're seeing that the county is spending more and more, or having more and more opportunities to work with our sister counties. We've got the 5-county public defender's office. We've got the 198th, which is 2 counties, the 216th, which is 2 counties. Our VFDs go across county lines with these mutual aid agreements. The more we come together as a regional community, I think it's a good thing. So I would be in favor.
Well, my question is this an individual that always stays assigned to this?
Yes, sir. Yes, it is.
Okay.
And Harley, I know, Judge, we don't want to go there. You know, I have bright in the future for it, and hopefully we'll be able to change the way it's funded.
Okay.
I'll leave it there.
But because when you say mutual aid, that doesn't necessarily mean there's an assigned individual. It means that we cooperate with other, and you know, Centerpoint Fire Department cooperates with the Turtle Creek Volunteer Fire Department. That doesn't mean any one person is assigned to it. So you're saying a single individual is always going to have this duty?
Yes, sir.
Nothing else?
Correct.
Who tells them where to go?
The 3 sheriffs get together on a monthly basis, and it's up to them to know what's going on. These guys are highly trained. I recruited a guy that's just really sharp, really trained for Berkeley Police Department, and just really good. In this unit, you know, we don't have a K-9, but the other 2 counties do have a K-9. It's kind of just putting all these sources together. Like I said, a force multiplier. You know, I look for it to be very successful.
And no budget change.
No, I'm not asking for anything. We can do it in-house.
I know, I'm just wanting to make sure. My questions all involve having one less person dealing with stuff here instead of out on a specific road and not knowing any more about where you assign folks. It may not be much of a change anyway.
So, you know, this guy is provided out of my Special Operations Division. It's not a patrol deputy, so like I said, again, will not hurt any calls out on the road. He's provided from as an investigator type side of the sheriff's office out of my Special Operations Division.
Okay. Just a little more specialized.
Yes, very.
Well, it's important that the people that pay for it know all that. So I'm trying to draw information out. So
Okay.
the more we know, the better.
Perfect, thanks.
Anything else? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 4-0.
All right, thank you all.
Item 1.10, consider, discuss, and take appropriate action to add Mike Baker as the second alternate in addition to Paul Gonzalez to Mary Krebs on the Criminal Justice Advisory Committee, or CJAC, of ACOG. And you know, I think everybody will remember that we've got Rosa Lavender and Mary Krebs as our representatives on the CJAC board. And then we have alternates. And over recent years, we've struggled finding people that were willing to be alternates. We've gone through several, including one of our own. But we find ourselves in a unique situation that I talked to Paul to be the alternate for Rosa, and he agreed to do it. And meanwhile, Carol Twist was recruiting Mike out in Ingram to also do it. And so we have a wealth of people willing to help us with this, but they have to be approved by Commissioner's Court. And we approved Paul at our last regular meeting, if you remember. And so we now have those positions filled. But what we've got here is there are going to be certain conflicts. And this with Rosa about this Saturday morning. You know, it was Friday afternoon. She was driving back from the CJAC meeting. She called me on the way back to the coast. And the grant application that we have going in, that our grant administrator just completed, has a request for about $75,000 worth of body cameras, mainly for the sheriff's department, but also for our constables. And that's going to put Paul in a position of conflict. So he's not going to be able to sit in and screen on that particular grant application. And what we're looking to use Mike for is we'll let Mike go in and screen on that one and get these people trained so that by the time they become the regular representative, not just the alternate, the regular they'll understand the process and have the experience to do it. So, we got lucky. So I'm asking to have him approved as a second alternate, so that he is officially approved and recognized as ACOG.
Well, then I'll second that.
So I made the motion, we've got a second, to approve Mike Baker as the second alternate for CJAC at ACOG. Any discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 4-0. Thank you. Makes our life a lot easier.
Sure.
Item 1.11, consider, discuss, and take appropriate action to confirm the appointment of officers to the Emergency Services District Number 4, ESD 4, and approve the terms of service. Commissioner Harris, you want to identify these?
Sure. I nominated and we approved the board for ESD 4, but we didn't assign term limits. Positions and what have you. So we had elections and Tim Upton was voted president, Molly Adams vice president, treasurer was Hal Bunyard, secretary Jeff Ganaway, and at large was Doug Hill. And we need to start these off at staggered terms. So we identified the president, vice president, and treasurer as a 2-year term starting out, and then the secretary and at large positions be a 1-year term.
This is
Start out.
the newest one.
Newest one, along with ESD 3, which you'll be doing the same thing.
Now, wasn't Tim was on?
Yes,
number
and
one.
he moved.
Yeah.
And he was on ESD 1.
We did 3. You and I went out there and did 3.
The
last
terms?
year.
Yes, but I don't think
But
we
the
got
terms.
terms straight.
Well, I don't know about,
That-
applicants.
What the officers are gonna
We
do,
did the officers.
Yes.
okay, how long they're gonna serve and so on.
Right. And that's all we're doing is just assigning the first initial term so they're staggered and you don't have them all coming up at one time. So with that, I move for approval.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve the slate of officers for ESD number 4 as presented. Any further discussion?
And the term.
And the terms.
Right.
Second. Got a motion and a second to approve the officers and their terms as presented. All those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 4-0. 1.12, consider, discuss, and take appropriate action to authorize Commissioner Gibson and Commissioner Les to sign the temporary construction easement for the East Kirk County Center Point wastewater project.
I move for approval.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. I did have an opportunity to visit with Charlie and our contractor, representatives from our contractor, D. last week. And getting these temporary easements is one of the most important things to have to be able to complete that phase. So this is very timely. So any other discussion? Okay. Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous. Okay, we're actually a little ahead of schedule, so why don't we go ahead and take our morning break, and let's be back at 10 o'clock. Okay, before we come back to order, next item on the agenda is 1.13, consider, discuss, and take appropriate action. Open and receive bids for the 2022 road construction project. Read the bids aloud. Refer the bids to the county engineer for tabulation and award with the lowest qualified bidder. And
It's an honor.
And for those who can't see this, every good Texan has a pocket knife. Mr. Harris has got a sharp one here.
I'm good. All right, we have, something from Sure Tech.
Did you say Sure Tech?
Yes, sir. S-U-R-E, capital T-E-C. Is that all I need to do? Just read that?
You gotta read
Sure
the
Tech, and then there'll be,
because we verified
Job
that.
A, job
Okay.
B, job C.
We'll get to it.
Commissioner Harris, there will be there's three jobs on this, an A, a B, and a C.
Okay.
So there will be three separate pages. I've got the page number here, give me a moment, but basically you'll be
Okay.
giving us the totals for each one of those.
Job A, $270,084.
Yeah, could you repeat that? We can't tell if this is a 7, maybe a 4, 270, 240?
We're gonna have to do.
We'll do, when we do our bid tab, we'll find out what it is with
Yeah.
the calculator.
I think it's a 4-2. Let's say it's $240,084. That's for job A.
Did all of them bid all three, Charlie? That we,
Well, we
We'll
don't
find
want to
out.
get into them.
as far as you know?
I don't know.
Mr. Les is a lot quicker at this than I am.
Yeah, he's been doing it a few years.
The page number should be 070-5, 070-6, and 070-7, 5, 6, and 7.
We've got two-sided bids, which kind of has to. So
Okay.
job B. I don't
Job
have-
B's there, okay? $66,166. $66,166. Okay.
And then we have job C,
You have it?
so let's, just job C, Rick.
Well, I'm glad you're here. $64,510 for job C. Thank you, ma'am. Give my nine. The next one's from J3 Company. Okay, job A, $644,564. Job B, $151,129. Job C, $183,181. You keeping score?
I am.
Good. This is from Truon Construction and Engineering. Job A, $427,982. Job B, $151,664. $633. Job C, $138,985. And then the last one. Okay, I'm sorry. It's LCR Total Transport LLC. Out of Woolburg. Job A, $219,122.40. Job B, $64,250.95. Job C is $62,252.15. Okay, that's it.
Thank you, Commissioner. My assistant, Mr. Gore, will take those. He's going to run bid tabulations. He'll be checking for bid bonds in those packages. And if, hopefully, if everything's in order, we'll come back later this morning and be able to award to the apparent low bidder.
Very good. So let's move on to item 1.14, which is a public hearing for revision of plat from Wood Trails Ranch lots 58 and 56A. Just a public hearing, come to order. Anybody here that would like to speak with regard to this matter? There being none, and we will adjourn the public meeting and move on to item 1.15.
Judge, did we need to make a motion to accept those bids?
I think we do.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should.
Yeah.
Or I think the motion should be to receive them.
Yeah, to receive them.
Yes, sir.
Exactly.
And all of them were, the clerk can confirm that they were all turned in on time. Okay.
Let me finish up item 1.15
Okay.
and adjourn the public meeting. And we'll go back and I need a motion to receive the bids as presented.
I move that we receive them.
Yes. A motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Bids are received. Moving on to the next agenda item, which would be 1.15. Consider, discuss, and take action for the court to clarify section 1.04 of the 2007 Kerr County Subdivision Rules and Regulations.
Section 1.04 of the 2007 Kirk County Subdivision Rules and Regulations states that a revision of plat previously approved shall be subject to the same rules and regulations contained herein, except as specifically modified for the revision of plat. See section 6.04.c. The county engineer, county engineering assistant, county surveyor, and local surveyor Eric Ashley met on January 14th, 2022 to discuss modifications to the subdivision rules and regulations that would make the intent of this section of the code more understandable. We believe the following modifications to the regulations will clarify our collective belief that platting exemptions should not apply to the revision of plat, and revisions should not be subject to the dedication of road easements or right-of-way separate from the lot. And we're going to, for the sake of this meeting and for the sake that we're right in the middle of almost being done with the new subdivision regulations, the part that talks about our belief that platting exemptions should not apply to the revision of plat, we're going to withhold that part and just focus only on revisions should not be subject to dedication of road easements or right-of-way separate from the lot. You all know that's been an issue over the last few weeks and months, and we'd like some clarification. This is what we believe the regulations could be rewritten as. To clarify it, a revision of plat previously approved shall be subject to the same rules and regulations contained herein, except, that's where we get, where we clarify, sections 6.02.c.12, 6.02.c.14, 6.03.c.16, 6.03.c.18, 7.02, and 7.06. And then we jump back into the regular language, and as specifically modified for the revision of plat, see section 6.04.c. And for the record, those sections, each one of them, I'll go through what they say and what we're thinking the revision of plat should be exempt from. Section 6.02.C.12 states that the plat must show all road right-of-ways separate from individual lots. And that's on preliminary plats. 6.02.C.14 is also for preliminary plats. Lot lines should be contiguous with right-of-way lines for all roads and streets where applicable. And we're well aware that preliminary plats are just optional now. They're not required by state law. 6.03.C.16 reiterates that language over again, and so does 6.03.C.18. It just does it in the section of our rules that is for final plats. So once again, and those two rules are, and it's verbatim, the plat must show all road right-of-ways separate from individual lots. I'm sounding repetitive because I am. And lot lines should be contiguous with right-of-way lines for all roads and streets where applicable. There's three more sections. Section 6.04.C says, I'm not going to read that because we're not asked. That's not a change at all, but it's in there for your reference. The other two are 7.02 and 7.06. 7.02 states, in no event shall any private lot extend into a dedicated roadway. And 7.06 says the boundary lines of all tracts or lots fronting onto a dedicated road or dedicated right-of-way shall be contiguous with the boundary of the road or right-of-way. If these clarifications are added to the existing subdivision regulations, then for revision of plats that have lots going to the center of the road right-of-ways, which we've got a ton of those all over the county, the land within the right-of-way will remain a part of the revised lot, and the county will only retain an easement, a road easement. The county engineer requests that the court clarify the intent of section 1.04 by adopting the following language. A revision of plat previously approved shall be subject to the same rules and regulations contained herein, except sections 6.02.C.12, 6.02.C.14, 6.03.C.16, 6.03.C.18, 7.02 and 7.06, and as specifically modified for the revision of plat, see section 6.04.C.
So engineering and the county surveyor, this is what you guys came up with?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And the public.
And I move for approval.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the revisions to the subdivision rules as presented. And as I understand it, Charlie, what this does is go back and adopt all those corrective measures that we were talking about, the hearings we had here in the past few weeks.
Yes, sir.
And get everything, so it's all now consistent in rules.
It cleans it up, and it avoids him having to ask for a variance for something that we all believe.
Right.
We're going to give the variance to you, but it just cleans it up, makes it
Cleans up
clear.
everything on those, the property lines going to the center of the right of way.
Yes, sir.
Good. That's what we want.
Right. We don't want people losing.
Any other input? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is item 1.16. Consider discuss take appropriate action for the court to set a public hearing for 10 a.m. on March the 28th, 2022 for a revision of plat for the Ingram Hill subdivision. Charlie Hastings.
Thank you, Judge. This proposal revises the western half of Ingram Hills Tract 59. It was 10.17 acres as platted, goes to the middle of the road, by the way. This tract was previously divided into two separate tracts without revising the plat. This plat revision will correct matters for the western half of Tract 59. It will be known as Tract 59W and will front Ingram Hills Road. We have been in contact with the neighbor on the other side, the other half. They will probably come in and correct theirs at a later date. They're just on a different schedule. County engineer requests the court set a public hearing for 10 a.m. on March 28, 2022 for revision of plat for Ingram Hills, Tract 59, Volume 3, page 149, Precinct 4.
I move for approval. Second.
We've got a motion and a second to approve setting a public hearing for March the 28th for Ingram Hill subdivision. Any discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous. Next item is item 1.17. Consider discuss and take appropriate action from the court to approve an amending plat for Greenwood Forest, Section 7, Phase 2, block 18, lots 20R and 21R. Carly Hastings.
A revision of plat was filed in November of 2021 to adjust the lot lines between lots 20 and 21. This proposed amendment readjusts a portion of that line to its original location. Lot 20R, currently 0.43 acres, 0.45 acres as originally platted, will be 0.41 acres. And lot 21R, currently 0.55 acres, it was 0.53 when originally platted. It will become 0.57 acres. Both lots will front Sherwood Lane. These lots existed before our current regulations. Lot 20 was less than half an acre when originally platted in 1985. And that's in volume 5, page 151. Originally, they submitted this, they did their best to keep the two lots virtually the same acreage so that we could say, hey, nothing's really changing here, they're just moving a lot line. But then they had some issues with their mortgage company about moving that lot line. And they said, no, you gotta move something back. And so that's what they're doing here through an amendment. County engineer requests the court consider, discuss, and take appropriate action to approve amending plat for Greenwood Forest, Section 7, Phase 2, Block 18, lots 20R through 21R, plat file number 21-10225, it's precinct 4. And one final note is that environmental health will not sign this because technically it doesn't meet state law about having to be half an acre to have a septic system, but they will sign it if you approve it.
I move for approval.
Second. Got a motion and a second to approve the amended plat as presented. We did this just last November, didn't we?
We did.
And so
We
the
did.
mortgage company decided we needed to undo some of this?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And now we're making it legal for environmental health also.
Yes.
Got it.
Another one of those unforeseen consequences.
The little things we have to fix. Any other discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous. Next item on the agenda is item 1.18. Consider, discuss, take appropriate action for the court to approve the final plat for Great Sky Ranch and accept the associated letter of credit in the amount of $977,505.56 as a financial guarantee for the construction performance of same. Carly Hastings.
This final plat proposes 78 lots. They're all greater than 5 acres, with 7 roads. Primary access would be off of State Highway 173. All proposed improvements in the floodplain must meet floodplain regulations. There's just a little blip of floodplain that goes in. These lots are huge. It's not going to really affect anything. It's a technicality. Lot 901 is being dedicated to the Headwaters Groundwater Conservation District as a monitor well tract per the Kerr County water availability requirements. Lots 8 through 11 are largely encumbered by self-imposed 300-foot rear lot line building setbacks, giving the appearance, when you look at it, because the lot's so big, that the lots are not buildable. Therefore, the developer has provided exhibits demonstrating each of these lots are buildable. Those exhibits are in your packet. They can put a 3,600 square foot home on these. They've shown that. A letter of credit in the amount of $977,505.56 with First Citizens Bank and Trust Company out of Raleigh, North Carolina, and there are branches in Texas for that bank, have been submitted as a financial guarantee for construction performance. Construction plans were approved by the county engineer on January 31st, 2022. However, the developer installed base on the roads prior to the approved construction plans, as noted in a site inspection conducted December 20th, 2021. The base was subsequently removed from the roads and stockpiled on site in an effort to bring the development into compliance with Kerr County subdivision regulations and awaits a pre-construction meeting as a requirement prior to construction commencement, which will be scheduled following final plat acceptance by the court. A concept plan was presented to the court on September 27, 2021. County engineer requests the court approve a final plat for Great Sky Ranch and accept the associated letter of credit number SB 95797 in the amount of $977,505.56 as a financial guarantee for construction performance of the same. This is in precinct 2.
I move for approval.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the final plat approval for Great Sky Ranch is presented, and that includes accepting the letter of credit. Do we have anyone here from?
The design engineers, David Parks.
Thanks, Chairman. Good morning, Judge, Commissioners, thank you. My name is David Parkerson. I'm a licensed civil and the owner's representative for the project here locally.
How did we have the screw up on this thing?
Miscommunication, it's an out-of-state developer. Them and their contractor, they had a miscommunication on importing of base material and got started early. Charlie and I have been in great communication since then and before then. And of course, Charlie and the folks in the county engineer's office directed them to immediately remediate and remove all of that, which is the same message I had been giving them. I know that it was just a mistake in communication, and they apologized for a few times, but for whatever.
Well, you know, we had the same problem over on 479 with another developer from North Carolina.
Yes, sir.
Basically the same routine. They put in the roads and surveyed the lots, brought the tin in and had some kind of pre-sale that wasn't a sale, because you can't pre-sell lots until the plat's been approved.
Yes, sir.
Not only that, it was opening weekend of deer season. They left flying people around in helicopters. Really made a good impression on their neighbors.
And had the same thing happen with this one. We put up the big tent, had the people in, drove them around, flew them around wherever you did.
It's a different organization, but there are many of the same players. Yes, sir. And it should not have happened. So.
What is the? How do they get around this pre-sale? What is it that they do? I don't understand the exact mechanism that they're using to try to market these lots but not actually sell them, because it's against our rules to sell them.
My understanding is it's just a marketing event and it's an introduction to the project. You know, what kind of agreements were made, I can't say as far as what was happening there. Again, I'm the engineer of the project and trying to keep it all between the lines, but I know that just agreements between potential buyers, and that's the MO of that company, and they do a lot of projects nationwide. They do a lot of great projects nationwide. They're very aggressive in timing, and I think that's got ahead of them on this. And I recall very clearly that meeting in September when we stood right here and listened to the concerns of the court, and those concerns were of course passed on. And I think there was some miscommunication after that. So.
And you understand that there are criminal penalties
Yes,
for
sir.
violation of these rules?
Yes, sir.
And I don't want to sound like a grouch, but when out-of-state developers come in here and just flagrantly disregard our subdivision rules, it's concerning. And we're relying on the local folks, the boots on the ground here, such as yourself,
Yes, sir.
to remind your clients that we have very stringent subdivision rules that we expect to be enforced and followed. And I appreciate that you're the designated driver here today.
Until I die, I find someone better. Yes.
But I'm still voicing my concern, and I appreciate the fact that, and for the people that don't realize what happened, they actually came in and scraped up all of the base for those roads, and scraped it up and put it in a pile, which is kind of, if you think about it, a waste of a lot of money. But that was the only way we could get you back into compliance.
Yes.
And both of these projects had to do that, even though they're technically unrelated, but they're both from North Carolina. So
Their intent was a stockpile originally, and I think that's where the miscommunication between contractor change-ups came in. It's a different crew that lays base.
So we've got, hopefully, these two goof-ups, I'll call them, straightened out. But I do want to put the world on notice to the other developers coming in here. It's not going to be as simple as this going forward. If we continue to have violations of these subdivision rules, there will be consequences. So we'll live with what we've got. Time being. That's my scolding. I'm sorry.
It's I think it's well deserved, and it will be passed on.
One question, the three lots that he made the point, and they're in here, that it looks like they're within the 300-foot setback, but there is room. But it's in specific zone room. Is that in the plat? I'm assuming that's in the plat itself. Or, you know, how does the next citizen pick up on that he has to live within a certain zone within?
It shows up. When you look at that lot, those will probably be the last lots that sell. It's probably what's gonna happen, because they're.
But it's in the plat also. I mean,
It's on the plat.
It is a sign.
Those setbacks are graphically depicted on the
I saw
plat.
that. What I didn't know was whether that's part of the plat.
It's part of the plat.
Okay.
So that basically dictates where a house will be built.
That's correct.
Okay.
We didn't do it, they did.
Yeah.
It's kind of, we just tell people that. Just a point of clarification. I know we had, I see this is Tortuga.
Yes, sir.
Tortuga Ranch. And we had a Tortuga Ranch in here, we approved something, I don't remember exactly what it was, after 173. This is now Great Sky, and I'm trying to figure out where we are with regard to.
It was a name change request.
Just a name change?
Yeah, just by the county, various offices because of an existing Tortuga subdivision. So of course the owner was happy to act.
But it's in the notes with your bank, with the bond. I know it's still got Tortuga on it.
That's
So
their
it's
property.
Tortuga Ranch LLC.
Yeah, it's
It's an LLC.
yeah, it's just an entity. They were going to do a DBA change it, but didn't see the need at the time.
And this is gonna be, so that the public knows, 78 5+ acre lots.
Yes, sir.
Everybody likes the turtle name.
It's on Turtle Creek.
So,
Any other discussion? We got a motion and a second. Those in favor, raise your hand. Yes. Don't do this to me, yes.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Item 1.19, consider, discuss, and take appropriate actions with the court to approve the final plat for Creekside Camp Green Phase 1 and accept the bond number 0798320 in the amount of $2,666,406 for the associated construction improvements.
Thank you, Judge. This final plat proposes 103 lots. They're all greater than 5 acres each, with 6 roads. Primary access will be via a bridge over Verde Creek adjacent to Ranches Market 480. All proposed improvements in the floodplain must meet floodplain regulations. A preliminary plat was approved August 23rd, 2021 by order number 38896. There will be a second phase to this, another approximately 100 lots. It's approximately 200 lots total, but this is phase 1. And probably the reason in the 2.6 million versus 977,000 is that bridge that they're building over Verde Creek. The county engineer requests the court approve a final plat for Creekside at Camp Verde Phase 1 and accept bond number 0798320 in the amount of $2,666,406 for associated construction improvements. Precinct 2.
I move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the final plat and the bond for Creekside and Camp Verde is presented. And just, I hate to say this, I read all of those numbers without my glasses. That's good surgery. Any other discussion about this one?
About the bridge. I want to rehearse this in my mind so I remember this correctly. The bridge was supposed to be built to a standard that wouldn't have really made sense. So it's more like a low water crossing now, right? Well,
It's a very high low water crossing. There's a tremendous amount of water that goes under it,
but it
but
still qualifies as a bridge.
Yes.
What you're proposing.
Yes, sir. Dan Mullins with the developer of Sutherland Communities. And the issue was that in order to get the bridge up completely out of the floodplain, since the highway's in the floodplain, it would have led to a dangerous situation where people are leaving the neighborhood and all of a sudden could end up in 2 or 3 feet of water on the highway. So that was, the decision was to keep it lower to where if the highway was underwater, the bridge would be underwater as well.
Yeah, makes sense.
It was a common sense deal.
Yeah, I just wanted to, I was trying to remember exactly what the deal was. I knew that the bridge didn't fit the road, but I had forgotten the visibility issue.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mullins, I want to thank you, all. It's been a pleasure to work with on this one.
Thank you, I appreciate that. You guys have too.
By the way, they went through a number of revisions on this bridge, working with Jonathan and myself, trying to.
Well, with the test wells and everything, it's been a pleasure working with them. So, this development is going to be 103 lots.
Yes, sir.
This is final approval today.
The unit's 1 and 3.
And then we got about another 100 coming.
It's, I think the next one is, it's around 70. I think it ends up being around, maybe a few more than 70. It ends up being just under 180.
Just under.
Same size.
Just under 180.
All 5 acre plus. Yes, sir.
So, with, that's out off 480 and 173.
Yes, sir.
In other words, if you're coming back into Kerrville, we all know people are going to take 173 back in. And with the 78 that we're doing at Great Sky and now 100 and less than 180, we're talking about approximately 250 new 5+ acre lots going in south of town off 173 and 480. In that area.
I would think most folks might take 16. This development's a little bit closer to Highway 16 than it is to 173. It's pretty close to the Canterbury store.
That's 173.
That's 173.
Yeah.
Medina.
Oh, you're right.
Medina.
You're right.
My ranch is right across the county line, and there, I know exactly where it is.
That's all of them.
Okay, any other discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. 4-0, unanimous. Thank you. Next item is 1.20, consider discuss take appropriate action on the implementation of the burn ban. This is what authorizes commissioners in each precinct to determine on burn bans. Routine, we do it regularly.
I move for approval.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve. Burn ban is presented. Any discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous. 1.21, consider discuss ordering the constitutional amendment election. Bob Reeves.
Good morning, Commissioners, Judge. I know it seems rather out of the ordinary to start early voting on one election and calling a second election. However, due to the second and third special sessions of the 87th legislature, there will be 2 constitutional amendments on the May 7 ballot. At this time, I would respectfully ask the court to order such election to be held. Your backup material is designates the days of early voting. This election will be held in conjunction with municipalities and school district elections as well. I will point out, and I believe Judge Kelly was present in the same session at the legislative conference in Austin this past August. Nobody knew about it. Our budget had already been approved. Therefore, the county auditor and myself will be coming back at some point in the future to ask for an amendment to the budget.
Is this a contingency fund issue or something else?
That's what we're going to discuss. If it was truly, it was unforeseen on our part, but whether we come from contingency or not, we'll have to bring that back to the court. But nonetheless, at this time, I would respectfully ask the court to order the election and sign the documents as needed.
Move to approve.
Second. Got a motion and a second to approve the constitutional amendment elections for May 7. Any other discussion? I will say that this was an ambush. You know, when legislation session, we never know what they're doing until it's over.
Neither do they.
I believe everybody in the room wasn't aware of it until it was brought to our attention that day.
254 counties dealing with the same issue.
That is correct, Commissioner.
We won't make any comment on the legislation.
I don't mind.
Okay, those in favor, raise your hand. Okay, that's, I've got to put the record vote in here, that's 4 ayes. Aye?
Aye.
Okay. And any nays? 0 nays. Okay, very good. Item 1.22, consider, discuss, and take appropriate action on the approval for the agreement on appointing law firm of Linebarger, Goggin, Blair, and Sampson, LLP, as special counsel to perform all legal services necessary to collect delinquent property taxes and authorizing the execution of such agreements.
Yes, before you, in your backup materials, is a contract between the Linebarger Law Firm and Kerr County. The county attorney has reviewed it and given her blessings. The court should find the following before authorizing the execution and signing of the contract. That after exercising its due diligence, Kirk County hereby finds that there is a substantial need for the legal services to be provided pursuant to the agreement for delinquent tax collection. These legal services cannot be adequately performed by the attorneys and supporting personnel of Kirk County at a reasonable cost. This section was discussed in detail with Ms. Stebbins and Jason for about 3 or 4 months. Number 3, these legal services cannot be obtained from attorneys in private practice under a contract providing only for the payment of hourly fees without regard to the outcome of the matter. Because of the nature of the delinquent tax penalties provided by Texas Tax Code Section 6.30, 33.07, 33.08, 33.11, and 33.48, and because the county does not have the funds to pay the estimated amounts required under a contract only for the payment of hourly fees. Number 4, Linebarger, Goggin, Blair, and Sampson, LLP is well qualified and competent to perform the legal services required to comply with the terms of the contract. Number 5, Linebarger, Goggin, Blair, and Sampson has never provided these specialized legal services to Kirk County in the past. And number 6, the contract with Linebarger, Goggin, Blair, and Sampson, LLP is the result of an arm's length transaction between Kirk County and Linebarger, Goggin, Blair, and Sampson, LLP, and is fair and reasonable. I respectfully request the court to approve the contract and authorize the county judge to sign the same.
Yes. So whoever's going to make the motion has to incorporate all
What
of
he just said.
Yes, he just said. So
By
as
saying
presented.
what he said.
We don't have to say it, you just say
No,
incorporate
that phrase, what he said.
what you said.
What,
All 6 conditions.
well, I wanted to ask about this. Originally, it seemed like to me, Bob, that you had mentioned there were about 3 companies that do this well. Am I remembering that right?
There's 3 main law firms in the state of Texas that performs this service, others on a statewide basis. Other law firms in some areas, smaller ones may represent 1 county or something. I collect for 13 entities.
Yeah, right.
So,
So this was the best of those 3.
in my opinion, yes, sir.
I just wanted to clarify that a little bit and then say, I'll make the motion incorporating the specified
The 6
language,
preconditions.
6 preconditions in what Mr. Reeves just said.
Second. Got a motion and second to approve the agreement appointing Linebarger, Goggin, Blair, and Sampson LLP as special counsel to Kirk County for legal services necessary to collect delinquent property taxes. And I personally know many of the people in this firm. It's a very good firm, very reputable firm. And Ms. Reeves and I have talked about this at some length and actually had, I'm trying to remember who was it came by that day?
Sam Turner.
Sam Kerr. We sat down and I went over all this, so I think we're pretty good.
Does your motion include authorizing county judge to sign, Commissioner?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Any discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 4-0.
By the way, Bob's done this before, for those of you that don't know, he's set up here, so he can correct us when he needs to.
No corrections intended.
Thank you. Can spoon feed us at times.
Okay. Then item 1.23, consider discuss take appropriate action regarding the election protocols for early voting at the Hill Country Youth Event Center. Sheriff Latham.
Yes, sir. All right, I've been talking to Don about this, spoke a little bit with Bob, and asked this to be put on the agenda. And as we know, during the election, and please don't take this disrespectful, but what I don't want to be the sign police unless I've got some teeth to take some action. And, you know, going through a long election myself, a primary, runoff, general, started at Calhoun, ended up at the event center. I've kind of learned all the tricks of the trade per se. Everybody has to have that sign just as you turn in on the fence. Well, I've already, you know, started getting complaints. Obviously, there was a sign up last night at 11 o'clock. I was there this morning. There's signs on the fence. Everybody asked me, what can you do? What? I don't want to be tied up in that controversy. I'm asking y'all for some support.
That's some training, folks.
That's the music I'll play. Anyway, I just want to have a discussion today. You know, y'all went through this before last year. You know, everybody has, you know, has a complaint, put them up early, 30 minutes. When I was at the city campaigning, it was very strict. Lose your signs if they're there after hours. So I just want to have a discussion what we can do, because I have a lot of questions already. You know, things. I don't look for this to be a very bad one this time, but in the future, if the city ever goes over there, as we know how those have turned out previously. So just want to have a discussion what we can do to kind of take some action here.
And the city election is coming.
Yes, sir.
That's right. That's going to be what our constitutional amendment election is.
You know, we kind of addressed this before, and in fact, Harley and I were supposed to head up committee, and then the China virus hit us, the world turned upside down, and we never got back to it.
We did review a few ideas.
We did, right. we did. But we have this that Heather provided all of us. I think Jody gave us each a copy. And it's my view that all of this stuff is pretty simple, and it can be handed out. Everybody sees exactly what's expected and not expected. And it's my opinion that we adopt this. We never got back to it, you know, with COVID and all that kind of stuff. But I think it's time. And this would be a very simple fix to where everybody sees exactly what the county expects and doesn't expect. And it falls right in line with what the city does. And so, you know, whether you're going to Calhoun or you're going out to our grounds, then you know what's expected. So.
Well,
Go ahead.
No.
Well, with that,
I just want to comment. Go ahead.
well, I move that we accept these Kerr County regulation of political signs and Kerr County owned polling places that y'all have before you.
Some of this is subject to state law and federal law. So we can't just so everybody understands, we can't just decide
Right.
something different than how many feet you can be from the pole to the sign.
Bingo. So,
I think it is implicit that these are subject to state, important state and federal laws. These are.
But so people know that we are not just making something up and we have different rules.
So that's the second.
That's the second.
You get good at that.
He's learned from his wife. When she says, so you agree?
We got a motion and a second to approve the election protocols as presented. I'd like to have a brief discussion with you, very, very brief, so that the candidates can look back at the YouTube and see how we discussed this. Because in 2020, we had, it wasn't riotous out there, but it was aggressive. And I had to go out, I had to call him, he was out of town at the time, trying to get some of these little things worked out. And I'll just recount some of the things that I encountered, and I would like you, as the enforcer, to know kind of how we work through these things. There was great concern about, as you enter the entrance gate, the candidates want to get out there, they think people will roll down their window and talk to them as they pull up, and they want to give them their card, their push card, or whatever it is. And what happens is that traffic stacks up and backs up on Highway 27, making it very, very unsafe. And so what all the candidates, I negotiated a mediation agreement out there, what we all agreed to was to move back, and those gates, I think, are like 16-foot gates, 2 16-foot gates, that the candidates would not campaign, once you open the gate, they will not be inside that 16-foot gate. So they're back away from the entry area as they come in. Another thing that was hotly discussed was, can they put their canopies up out in the middle of the parking lot? And we finally resolved that canopies would be along the fence line.
Yes.
And as far as the signs, whether or not the signs are going to be up there overnight, I think is, we can give them some guidance as to whether they got to put them up, take them down, whatever.
It's in this, 30 minutes before and 30 minutes after.
I'm fine with that. But those were the three hot button issues that we need to give some input to them. So the signs go up at a certain time and come down at a certain time. They can leave their canopies out there, but they leave them along the fence line. And you set them up along the fence line. And we have a clear, the idea was for the traffic to be able to get all the way down to the front of Youth Event Center, the park, and to get into Bob Reed's area, into his 100 feet area, because we've got everything past that. So there won't be any congestion. We do not want the traffic to slow down as it comes in the event center.
Yes.
Well, and if we pass this, and we did, the sheriff said he would have somebody go out and pass these out. But I'd also like to call Bob up, because we discussed the other day as far as being able to use the restrooms and what they can do and can't do as far as wearing buttons or anything else. Bob, you want to kind of explain what we discussed as far as where they can go?
Well, as Judge Kelly said, that what happens outside the 100-foot marker, I have no control over. That will be up to the court. Sheriff Letha, inside the 100-foot is my jurisdiction, if
You
you
made
will.
painfully clear to me that you're not going to let us drag you out there into the parking lot where we have to.
We wouldn't think of it.
Well, I
But
hope
we understand.
But as the elections officer and the early voting clerk, that is where my authority ends, is the 100-foot marker. As far as use of the restrooms, the back of the show barn is available, but here again.
Closest to River Road.
Closest to River Road. Here again, though, you cannot walk through the polling place on the way to the restroom. Last year, I beg your pardon, 2020, I suggested that they drive around to the back. That way there's no visibility. But by the same token, with that, buttons or anything cannot be worn, because if you go to the extent of the law, it's from any exterior door is the 100-foot marker. So how do you classify the show barn? And I don't believe that's the time to start debating, because it can be debated either way. In addition, amplified sound loudspeakers, that's 1,000-foot distance. So if they need to use that, they're going to get, if they go south, they're going to get wet.
Well, and to clarify that, because that was an issue. I remember the amplified sound system. But the parsing of words were that, well, they weren't really campaigning, they were just being informational. And I'd rather not have any of them out there at all, frankly.
And once again, the law's pretty specific. If you're campaigning, vote for George or whoever, with a loudspeaker, it's 1,000 feet, which basically will put you at the red light by the VA. If it's on county property, it's outside it's inside 1,000 feet. That's why I say if you got a flat rock, to get 1,000 feet, you're gonna get wet.
But I think just as a rule of thumb, no sound systems.
Well, here again,
1,000 feet that they're.
1,000 feet,
Even if they're arguing that it's informational, we just don't need them inside
1,000
those
feet.
grounds.
Well, 1,000 feet, if it's loud enough, it'll still hear it, or maybe somebody try to do it, you never know.
Well,
Here's the question I have for you, Mr. Reeves, is that this year, there won't be drive-through voting, I'm assuming.
There won't be, there is curbside. We've never
Curbside,
had, we have
it's not
never,
drive-through.
we have never had drive-through. It's designated as curbside, even though there was an area they could pull into. There still will be curbside as mandated by law, but it will be in the front of the expo hall.
So
And there is
then
a
the
bell
mayor-
like an old service station would have. You
Right.
drive over it, dings and.
So the restrooms in the back on both sides will be available?
They can be available, but the candidates will need to go around rather than
And go through?
through.
I committed every violation in the last election without realizing it. And I was directed to the restroom in the back, and I went to that, and that's where the cars were pulling through, and they said, no, you gotta go to that one around there, and I said, I can't wait that long. So I got fussed at quite a bit. Just wanna clarify where the restrooms are.
But it's good we're talking about it now,
Yes, exactly.
and not in the heat of the moment.
And I will say, if I understood correctly, this is only on the county property,
Right.
county-owned properties,
Right.
as we have no control over other governmental entities, i.e. Ingram ISD. They will have to come up with their own guidelines if they so choose regarding the time the signs can be put up and taken down, as well as the polling places on March 1st, which are located outside the city of Kerrville or the city of Ingram, which are not on county property. We would have no control over that as well.
Their rules apply.
But again, we would encourage them to take a look at our rules, and if they think they're appropriate, just incorporate them.
That would be up to them.
Right. We understand.
Sure.
Okay, we've already adopted these.
We need to
Okay,
call the question.
those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 4-0.
Okay.
Then we have.
Did we give the sheriff, he can write him a ticket, or what, he asked for something?
It's a class.
Can I ask that we,
How's that gonna work?
we post that? Well, what I wanted to make clear is, I spoke to Don, we'll designate an area, but what we're gonna do, we're gonna give a reasonable amount of time. We're not gonna be there 30 minutes. We'll give a reasonable amount of time, and then we're gonna remove them permanently. So, you know, what we don't want to get into is where we're picking them up for everybody, and then they can just go get them the next day, because then we're not in that business. So Don, like I said, we'll get with Jake or something, see where we can remove them, but when we remove them, it's permanently.
Very good.
And if we can put this on the social media website, or maybe the county put out a press release on it, I'll do the same.
Good.
And we'll hand out one to each candidate.
We'll get Lisa to write a press release, just not today.
Okay.
Yeah. He's on the road.
I had to stop, put my cup of coffee down and read that.
That was pretty wild.
Things I didn't know.
Yeah.
1.24, consider discuss and take appropriate action on a request to authorize the county judge to prepare a letter approving the sale of alcohol at Easterfest being held at Flat Rock Park on April the 16th, 2022. The letter should be sent to the Texas Alcoholic Beverage Commission. Ms. Dawes.
You just said it all.
I move for approval. Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve letter to TABC to serve alcohol at Easterfest. Any discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous.
Thank you.
Letter signed.
Judge, can we call the item back for the, was it 114, I believe?
The bids?
For the bids? Yes, sir.
1.13.
1.3? No.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, 1.13.
Yes, 1.13.
Yes.
This is consider, discuss, take appropriate action. We've actually opened and received, and now we're going to award the bids for the 2022 road reconstruction project. Charlie Hastings.
Judge, I'd like to start off with the first bid that was opened was from CK Newberry LLC out of Karnes City, Texas. Their bonding company was SureTech.
Okay.
So that was at the top, it
That's
said
what got you.
SureTech, that
You
first
questioned
page.
it. Yeah.
But CK Newberry out of Karnes City. J3 Company is out of Comfort, Texas. They were the second bid. The third bid was Triune Construction / Engineering out of San Antonio. And the fourth and final, and also the lowest and qualified bidder, is LCR Total Transport LLC. They're out of Bulverde, Texas. And I'm going to ask the court to authorize the judge to enter into a construction contract with LCR Total Transport LLC out of Bulverde, Texas for Job A, $219,122.40. For Job B, $64,250.95. And for Job C, $62,252.15 for a grand total of $345,625.50.
Big difference.
Yeah, that's when, to make it open bid.
You had the first and the last contractors that we opened, and those bids were right on neck and neck with each other, and then you had the two in the middle, and they were neck and neck with each other. So it's probably a difference of a bigger contractor that is very capable. They can come in and they can do Ranchero Road like we did in 5 days, which that's what we did on phase 1, believe it or not, 5 days. But we don't need that. We don't need to get these done in 5 days. We don't need to spend that kind of money. We can take our time and get them done in a reasonable amount of time. There's not near as much traffic on them, and the traffic control is easier to do. It's not right in front of a school, anything like that. I recommend that we award this bid to LCR Total Transport LLC out of Bulverde.
I move for approval.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve the award of the 2022 road reconstruction project to LCR Total Transport LLC. Any other discussions? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 4-0.
But one last thing I do want to, I've been wanting to do this publicly, is that phase 1 of Ranchero Road, J3 Company did an excellent job on that.
Good.
We needed their firepower for that job. We needed that done in 5 days. We entered into a contract with them to get it done in a month, and they got it done in 5 days, and we needed that. So kudos go out to them. I'm glad they're still bidding on our projects too. They're a very good company.
And we're glad to see that they're really busy.
Yeah.
That's a good sign. Okay, with that, I think we've completed the consideration agenda. Let's move on to the approval agenda. 2.1, budget amendments.
There are 3 budget amendments today. They're all just line item transfers.
Move for approval.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the budget amendments as presented. Any discussion?
Yeah, thank you for printing it so largely for me. I appreciate that. The judge doesn't need that anymore.
I've got it here in case. And with that, those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 4-0. 2.2, pay bills.
Yes, bills for consideration today amount to $3,745,638.34. It's about $2 million worth of debt, principal and interest that are always paid in the month of February. And then the other big ticket item in here is the De Guerrero construction. We're paying those even though we have not been paid yet by the Texas Water Development Board.
Move for approval. Okay, second.
Got a motion and a second to approve the bills, paid bills as presented. Any discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous. 2.3, late bills.
There are not any.
2.4, auditor reports.
There are not any.
Okay. 2.5 are monthly reports.
Yes. For the quarter October 1, 2021 through December 31st, 2021 County Treasurer Portfolio Summary, Tracy Sullivan. For January 2022, County Clerk J.D. Dowdy, including Certificate of Completion of Continuing Education. District Clerk Dawn Lance, including Certificate of Completion of Continuing Education. Treasurer Tracy Sullivan. Constable Precinct 1, Tommy Rodriguez. Precinct 2, Kyle Snyder. Precinct 3, Paul Gonzalez. Precinct 4, Brad Ryder. Justice of the Peace, Precinct 1, Mitzi French. Precinct 2, J.R. Hone. Precinct 3, Kathy Mitchell. Precinct 4, Bill Ragsdale. And Environmental Health, OSFF, Director Ashley Batters. I move for approval.
Second.
Motion and second to approve the monthly reports as presented. Any discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous. Court orders.
Yes. I sent those out, but I don't know who wants to take the item to call it out.
Why don't we defer that for Commissioner Letts?
He likes to do that.
He consistently does that. Rather than come in and second guessing without forewarning, I think we'll just pass it. So we'll move on to the information agenda, status reports from department heads. Yes. I saw you sitting out there.
Yes, I want to introduce our new IT staff this morning. His name is Daniel Togar.
Hi. Welcome aboard.
Okay. Any other department heads? I'm the only other one in the room. 3.2, status reports from elected officials.
I just want to give y'all a quick update on the storm on this last one, just so y'all know what's going on. This 2-day storm kind of affected me worse than the 10-day storm last year. I guess all we can figure was the ice. But in this particular one, we ended up leaving like 5 Tahoes behind where we just couldn't get them out. We left them behind, went to back and get it a couple days later in some of these subdivisions. I was out the horizon and we just couldn't get it out of there. And in addition to that, I did buy plenty of cables last year for we have the new Tahoes are 20-inch, the older ones are 17-inch. I don't know what I'm going to do there. The majority of them broke. And when they broke, it caused me, we broke 4 brake lines in there, and they were out of commission. So this storm, like I said, overall, the last one we had 2 vehicles damaged last year, very minimal, but this one really kind of got a hold of us. Just so y'all know, I tell y'all that, I'm going to entertain, nobody wants to spend more money on vehicles. I might entertain some more 4-wheel drive Suburbans. I have that one truck I talked about in a lot of presentations. We have an old Ford pickup back there, 350 4-wheel drive. I was going to get rid of it, but after this last storm, that's the only one that went 24 hours a day, and it ended up pulling our vehicles out later. I don't think I'll be able to get rid of that. But in addition to that, I'm going to look at chains. I don't know. The problem with the cables is, they're designed to only be driven in the ice and snow. Well, when they're answering calls at 30 miles an hour or less, it's only, and they take a good amount of time to put on there, and it's also cold, you're laying down getting them on there, is, the reason I've been told they're busting because we're driving on pavement. Well, it's not practical. I mean, you can't put them on, take them off, put them on when they're answering calls, so, I'm going to entertain chains. They're way more expensive, but, I lost almost all those sets, which is just throwing money away. We're going to try to see if they'll cover them by warranty, but I doubt that happens. But point of the story is this 2 days was a whole lot worse on us. Everything's back up and going, but all I can figure is the ice is, on the interstate, it was horrible. It was there, all hands on deck, all my investigators, my special operation guys, everybody grabbed a Tahoe, what was left, and got out there. And while we're here, I want to thank Paul Gonzalez. He was out there on that interstate with us because there was just a tremendous amount of workload out there with all them vehicles. As y'all see, we made national news real quick.
Yeah.
That's it. Thank you.
Well, while we're talking about that, let me just go ahead and footnote the volunteer fire departments and Doug Thomas in emergency management did an outstanding job.
Sorry about that.
Outstanding job.
They did.
And I've had many folks in the community out there in the county comment that they saw that we were prepared for this one. The freeway, we couldn't do anything about it.
Yeah, we can't do that tonight.
Couldn't do anything about the freeway. But I do want you to know that with Doug's assistance, I did get a personal call from Mac, Nim Kidd, who is the head of Tegan, who also had Colonel Hastings on the line, which was the head of DPS. And when we told them what we needed, they got
it here, yes.
They brought the troopers, they brought the de-icing, they brought everything, and Texas Military Department. So, I mean, we had mechanical problems.
Yeah, you're correct.
But in terms of being ready for the storm, we weren't.
Yeah, we
Very proud of
were.
our emergency management response.
We asked, they sent troopers, they sent us several troopers, and they sent us big wreckers from the Army National Guard and fuel trucks. I mean, it was pretty nice. Day late, but you never know, right? You don't have to.
Well, that was the diesel trucks. And for those that don't know, Love's Truck Stop were bringing gasoline, unleaded gasoline, up and down the freeway for the people that were staying in their cars because they were stranded. Be able to keep the heaters on.
Yes.
So it was very much of a coordinated community effort.
We're prepared. Thank you.
Okay, liaison.
Judge?
Yes, sir, okay.
Normally I don't follow the sheriff this often, but I do today. Just a reminder, early voting did start today. This Monday through Friday, it will be 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Saturday, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. There will be no early voting next Monday due to the President's Day holiday. That's not something Bob decided, that's state law. Next week, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, 7:30 to 6 p.m. each day. Friday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., which will be the last day of early voting, Friday, February 25th. Early voting is available at the Hill Country Youth Event Center and the Ingram ISD Administration Building in their boardroom at 510 College Street there in Ingram. So as of 9:30 this morning, my Chief Deputy, Ms. Alford, reported 23 people had voted at the event center and 2 at Ingram in the first hour and a half. So just remind everybody that there is time to vote. Please do it.
Thank you. Liaison commissioners? The only thing that I would report is, I alluded to it earlier, we did have a very productive meeting with the representatives from DGARA. This was Charlie Hastings and I. We met with the owner of the company, Danny Guerra, and Dominic Hamilton, and Harry Rodriguez. And we had that 10-day pay provision in the contract. So they agreed to renegotiate that to a 30-day pay, best efforts. So if we don't get paid on the 30th day, we're not going to be terminated. So we had a good mutual understanding that there would be no notice to terminate issued. We're going to sit down and talk about things as they get late. You heard Tanya identify that we're still waiting on getting the money back from the Texas Water Development Board. But we settled up with them to keep that going. And it was just, all around, it was a very, very positive meeting. So with that, I believe we got a couple of executive session items, so we're going to go ahead and adjourn out of open session, and we'll reconvene in 5 minutes in executive session. Good. Court will come back to order, coming out of executive session. It is 12:19. And there being no business before the court is adjourned.
The one
We have
item
one more.
for environmental health.
Okay, oh, the environmental health,
And
yes.
if you would put an effective date today for that,
Can.
just state an effective date.
Okay. We didn't get Don in here?
We got a quorum.
You have
We
no.
got a quorum.
He's just talking.
Okay, so we need a motion for the environmental health department. What's the
Grade 20,
the
step
title?
3.
I got that.
Designated representative.
Designated representative?
To revise the grade.
Grade 20, step 3, wasn't it?
Grade 20, step 3.
Correct.
So
I'll make the motion.
Second.
we've got a motion and a second to promote our current employee to designated representative at a grade 20, step 3,
Effective today.
effective today. So with that, any discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous 4-0.
Thank you.
Okay.
And with that, we have no other business, we're adjourned.
All right, now we.